just happy for you to kind of pull up and be a part. So we hope that you would share with your friends on tonight and drop some questions and comments in the chat. And let me start by talking a little bit about who I am and my special guests that are on with me live this evening. So, first of all, I'm sorry. My name is Elisha V. Cash, and I am the CEO of Jackson HR and Administrative Services. And I'm also the founder of the National Women's Empowerment Ministry. I am also the president of Wideneed Girls Who Lead. And I am also the co pastor of Global Leadership Christian Center and the GLCC Job Network. So, leadership is everything that I know and that I breathe. And so, tonight, we just want to welcome you to Women in Blazers. And we only ask one thing of you, and that's you share the information, share this live so that everyone could be a part of the conversation. So, like every generation, the millennial generation is unique. I would like to say that it's hard to even find a more positive group. When I think about positivity, I think about millennials because they are a very positive group. Um, of people to be around. Additionally, this generation has such high hopes for the future. And that's why today I am joined by two millennial bosses that are blazing the trails in corporate America. So please help me to welcome to the Women in Blazers platform, Miss Shanae Fields. She is the Global Public Policy Manager at Walmart. And help me welcome Miss Mia Holly. She is the Global Communications Manager at Microsoft. So, ladies, please start by introducing yourselves and just telling them something fun about yourself.
All right, well, I will go first. Hello, everyone, wherever you are. My name is Shayna Fields, and first of all, thank you so much, Miss Cash, for having us on this wonderful show and segment. I'm so excited to have this wonderful conversation with you all. Yes, I work for Walmart. I'm a Black girl at Walmart, and I am proud to say that I cover our racial equity policy portfolio in the realm of education, finance, criminal justice, and health. So this is new for me. I just graduated from Georgia State University in May of 2020, and I'm excited to finally be stepping through um, corporate America and also from a sense of policy. A fun fact about me is I didn't always start in the political arena. My career actually started in the performing arts. So whenever you see me, you may see me in a blazer, but you're also going to see me in some funky earrings to represent the creativity that is inside of me and that I will never get rid of. I will sing all day. And I'm also a woman of faith. So always a pleasure to meet fellow women of faith and everybody and just share the light that's inside of us. So can't wait to have this conversation.
Awesome. Awesome. You guys welcome her to the platform, Miss Shayna Fields. Okay, Mia, you have next.
All right. Well, I am Mia Hawley. I am new to Microsoft, but I handle our skilling and training for our new professionals as well as communication across the global team. So I guess you could say my title is more like a community manager. Um, but with that, I specialize in skilling and training and then also personal development. So whether that's positive intelligence or setting boundaries in and outside of work, that is really the focus of my day to day. And then, of course, outside of work, you just never know what you're going to get. Life is like a box of chocolates. So I take it day by day. I would say a fun fact is that, my sisters are 18 and 15 years older than me. So I'm like the little sister with siblings, but I tell people I'm kind of like the only child with siblings. Because they were so much older than me. So I'm a millennial, but I feel like I got a little bit of Gen X in there, and then the boomer parents. It all just makes this, well-rounded young woman.
Well, people are dropping comments, and so I want to make sure that everyone sees them. They say, "Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us." I know that we are streaming on a couple of platforms this evening, and so our only request today is to make sure that engagement is high, is that you share, 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 that you drop some questions in the chat, and you let us know how you're doing, how you feeling. Talk to us about your work situation, how you're bossing up in 2022, and just let us know how you're happy to be a part of the conversation. So we like a loud audience, one that just likes to keep the chat going that I can't keep up with. Because that makes for a round, robust conversation. So we're looking forward to having a robust conversation tonight. So let's go ahead and just lean in, ladies. Can we just do that? Let's just go ahead and get right to the conversation. Tonight's topic, I just want to go ahead and start off by saying Black women are highly educated and very ambitious. Outside of work, we are the forefront of social change. However, according to Lean In State of the Black Women in Corporate America, Black women are significantly underrepresented in leadership roles. Black women are underrepresented in the workplace for many reasons. One big factor they say is the broken wrong at the first critical step up to management. For every 100 men promoted to manager, only 58 Black women are promoted, despite the fact that Black women ask for promotions at the same rate as men. And for every 100 men hired into manager roles, only 64 Black women are hired. That means that fewer Black women seem to be promoted to different levels or to higher levels. And we continue to see the representation gap gets wider and wider. So our question tonight, after hearing that kind of data, because a lot of times when we have a particular issue or a particular problem, we ask, what is the solution, to that problem? And so my question that I have proposed from a millennial perspective is it time for a new curriculum for pathways to C-suite and leadership positions for Black women? So you guys just kind of jump in, and I have my own thoughts about it, but I want to hear what you all think.
I will say, I definitely think in navigating this role myself and just seeing others that have done it as well, I think it starts from leadership. It starts from the top down. And what I have noticed is a lot of the companies that they don't have that representation. It is because it is not made a priority from jump. Coming into my role now, I think that has been one of the biggest changes that I've experienced, is that leadership makes it a priority. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are not just buzzwords in the workplace. They actually make it a part of, our training. They make it a part of our everyday work culture, and they want people to feel like they're seen and they're important and that they are qualified to make those next steps up. Whereas I think a lot of the training is missed early on. And so people are left either with feeling like they don't have the opportunity to get that leadership role, or they turn to entrepreneurship and they make their own path.
That's very interesting. What do you think, Shayna? How do you want to weigh in? Oh, we can't hear you.
And welcome to 2022. This is work life. Well, my initial thought was exposure. Exposure to language and opportunities and training and networks. I think about the Executive Leadership Council. That is a network that oftentimes if you don't know about it, then you don't have access to it, and you aren't aware of the trainings and institutes and things that are available to you when you are working in corporate America. For me, my first bit of exposure was the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation internship program, which was sponsored by Walmart, sponsored by State Farm. So this internship was sponsored by a huge two huge companies, huge corporations, where young Black women and men were able to have access and insight into corporate America in a realm that they never seen before, that I have never seen before. I tell you, I couldn't regurgitate what government affairs was before I took the internship. I didn't even know what it was. So, it shows how far behind we may be, even in exposure, starting from the collegiate level, starting from high school. I think it doesn't it I love, Mia, how you said it starts from leadership, like that. They have to make it a priority, but we also have to make it a priority at the same time on the ground, where they're able to reach out and have those internship programs and different ways of exposing more minority audiences to positions that we don't even know exist or are being created in corporate America.
That's good. You said a couple of buzzwords for me, which was huge, which was exposure, and you said sponsorship. And so, as soon as you said those two words, my heart just melted, because I think a lot about my daughter, and I talk a lot about what her experiences will be as a young Black girl, if she does not receive exposure, and if she does not receive sponsorship. And so when you talked about being able to have that experience because two large companies decided that they wanted to make diversity, equity, and inclusion a priority. So that goes back to Mia's concept in regards to leadership, to invest those dollars, because that's what sponsorship is. When we invest those dollars into programs to say, hey, we want to provide um, exposure to a unique group of people, and particularly to an underrepresented group of people. And so that is huge components to making sure that people continue to have those opportunities available. When I talk about curriculum, because that's the educator in me, right? The educator in me talks about curriculum because that's the way that we kind of learn. That is the way we kind of lay out a learning pathway to help us see how we move to the next level. Outside of you receiving that opportunity, right? Do you think that it's time for us to revamp how we lay out a curriculum to see ourselves in executive C-suite positions? You mentioned an institute that was very known for cultivating women, right? Outside of having that organization, what else do you think is missing, or what else do you think Black women could take advantage of in order to start seeing themselves in those spaces?
When I think of other opportunities that Black women could take on, I think that it would be something on the lens of like seminars, things like that, that are providing free opportunities for education. And it starts from these hidden spaces moving out of those hidden spaces. And that's why I'm kind of speaking to this from a outsider's perspective, because it wasn't too long ago where I was in that perspective. So half of it is I genuinely don't know the best answer to that, because I think that there may be solutions that are vast. And why? Because the issue may be so hard to detect. It may be like layered solutions to that question. When I think of curriculum, I also think about, like you said, schools and institutions. So bringing individuals from the corporate sector, the private sector, into schools, into universities, having them speak to students, and also, like I said, just having those tools from the inside and those individuals from the inside that is usually hidden from the public, and unless they're in the media or on a headline, having them come out of those spaces, come out into spaces where you can find different groups, different vulnerable communities, different marginalized communities. That's the only way really that true exposure can happen, is when you come out from wherever you frequent, and you're making who you are and what you're able to offer and what is in your sector of work visible. So visibility and awareness is that's just my key. Mia, you have any thoughts on that?
I definitely think, from my perspective of leaving higher ed to come into tech, there were a few things that kind of helped me. So my journey is unique to this, experience, but I feel like, one, mentorship and connection were key, because there were a lot of spaces I just did not, I was not in that room for those conversations. So having a mentor, having like someone above or someone higher reaching to be able to speak on my behalf, to then relay a message, that was something that really helped. But then also just thinking back, like, having conversations like this and having conversations, I think, is where it starts. And I think that's the holistic journey that I feel like there's an issue with, is people don't want to talk. People are afraid of maybe this crabs in a bucket mentality, or they feel like if you have this opportunity, it's going to take away from me. And I'm like, there is enough room for all of us to have a seat at the table. But I think we've just been groomed to a certain extent to feel like, well, if you get this opportunity, how I know you're going to help me? Or it's trusting that, reach one, teach one. But then also with me moving up, I'm going back. I tell people, I'm like, I'll do everything in my power to provide whatever resources I can. If you feel like you want to come to Microsoft, I will ask the questions to whoever I need to. But it's just having that connection that a lot of times I feel like people are afraid to ask and people are afraid to talk. And it's just, you got to start the conversation somewhere. So, use your connections. I think that's where I failed early on in my career, is I was just too afraid to reach out to people that I knew in these different roles. And I didn't know who to ask to start that conversation for me. So it's like, if you're not comfortable with doing it on your own, then find somebody that you can have a genuine connection with, that can speak on your behalf, that can at least bridge that gap. And that's just my experience, but I feel like that helps a lot of people cut down on some of the time. That learning curve is getting out of your own way.
So that brings it to me back to professional development, right? So sometimes I ask people, well, do you know what you need, right? Do you know what type of professional development that will make you more confident to move to the next level? Or do you know the type of professional development that it will take to move you to the next space? We talked about mentorship and sponsorship, how that has been huge to your journey, right? Then once you get the opportunity, how do you feel confident in showing up in the space, right?
That's it.
Then that's the other piece of it. And uniquely, that's the HR in me that continues to talk about that we're always developing our skills and always tapping into our knowledge, skills, and abilities to be able to show up in space. So my second question to you, from your millennial lens, do Black women in middle management staff position have access to the professional development they need to advance in their careers?
I think it depends. I think it depends where you are. I honestly, I can say, coming from where I came from, even at Georgia State, I was lucky to have two female leaders. My supervisor and her supervisor were both women. And that was just a very unique experience that I didn't know outside of, that bubble. Even my part-time jobs, they were always women led. So I think they do have the access, depending on who is, trusting and investing in them. Even now where I'm at, that was a conversation I had early on with my manager. And I feel like she 100% trusted that, whatever I wanted to do, she's going to back it and she's going to help however she can. And so does, her supervisor. So I think that's a unique experience that I would hope everyone has access to, but the numbers clearly display that they don't.
And that's what I always go back to the data. But before I jump in on that, go ahead, Shannon. It looks like you were ready to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I share the same sentiment. I mean, it really matters where you are. But even to think about the fact that it matters development that you need. Sorry, were you able to hear me?
I
Fine.
wasn't. You stalled for 1 second.
So, okay. Well, what I was going to say was, the fact that we even have to think about, it depends on where you are compared to the numbers of, of our counterparts, who may be able to have more access to opportunities. That's where it's unfortunate. That's where, we all have the same 24 hours in a day, but everybody doesn't have the same access to opportunities within that same time span. So I was lucky, like Mia, pretty blessed to have the opportunity of mentorship and, development in school, different programs, and, different develop internships. I mean, this isn't something that, is not always feasible for everybody or for everybody to get to. And I'm not saying live in a utopian society and everything is going to be perfect, but it can be way better than where it is. So, I think when we look at the stats, when we look at numbers, it could be better, and Black women could have more professional development opportunities more visible to them. Um, I'll say this last part: YouTube University has served me well. You're wanting a millennial perspective.
Come on, millennial.
YouTube
Talk.
University for everything, for the brand, for the for financial inclusion tips. I mean, whatever it is, time management, how to manage up, YouTube. I mean, and it works.
Did you spoken like a millennial? She said YouTube University. I am going to write that down.
University. It works every time.
It does. And you're right when it comes to looking at the data. Certainly that professional development. And I want to ask you, what about when you show up in spaces with your other counterparts? Do you find that it seems as if they've had a tad bit more exposure to professional development than you have? Or tell me what does that feel like, or what has that been like?
I can start. So in the space that I work in, I started around Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill is it's growing in diversity, and it's growing in diversity. And when you get to Capitol Hill, it feels like everybody's smarter than you. Everybody use different language than you. When you come into your first company, there's corporate language that I had to YouTube about, because I said, why do we use so many acronyms? Just say what you need to say, man. I don't understand. And I think those oftentimes, it's not even smarts. It's a politic. It's office politics.
Yes.
Nobody taught me about office politics before I walked into an office. So here I am bringing my whole self into the space, and I'm like, well, are you bringing your whole self? Because I don't know anybody else outside that talks like the way that you're speaking, or in the way that you're emailing me. So there's some norms that you are not exposed to by counterparts that would make you feel like, oh wait, so how did you learn this? Did y'all talk like this in school? How did you get this lingo down? And so now I know about the lingo of circling back and all the jargon that we've used in the office and via email. But that was something for me that made me think, well, how did you know this? And then I came into my position, and I said, well, was I supposed to know about time management this well by the time I got in here? Or did y'all come in here knowing time management like this? I had so many questions. And so, yeah, it definitely makes you think, like, you guys must have had some type of seminar or professional training before you got in here to learn how to write that fast, complete so much in so little time, and email in the jargon that they use. So, yeah.
That is hilarious, but so true. And the thing about it is, we have upcoming the National Women's Empowerment Ministry and Jackson HR Administrative Services. We have upcoming a a professional development retreat. And so one of the classes, I had to pull it up so I make sure that I said it correct, is it's called Women Should Be Seen and Women Should Be Heard, Professional Presence,
Wow.
and how
Ooh,
to have that.
good.
Yeah, which is good. And so to me, I think if you're going to look to go next level in C-suite and executive leadership, you should know how to present yourself on that level and what that looks like. You talked about being in the space and just the language and how to navigate the language. It was like, whoa, I'm showing up whole and it doesn't. And Mia is nodding. So wait a minute. We didn't tell the viewers where you currently are. So I believe, let me make sure I get it right. So Shayna's in DC, correct?
Yes.
And Mia is in Washington State.
Yes.
And I am in Atlanta, Georgia.
Totally
Right.
different.
Totally different. So Mia, did you feel like Shayna did when you had to show up in certain spaces that maybe it was some professional development that you hadn't been quite exposed to? Tell me a little bit about that.
I would say that my experience is unique because I came on into a role 100% remote. And so having 11 years of experience in higher ed, it was kind of like you get used to how to move, you learn, what to do. And even if there are things that are siloed, you just understand how to navigate that. Whereas coming into tech, coming into a role 100% remote and not even really getting to meet my expanded team. So I just have formally met everyone on my immediate team. So having all of those kind of barriers to work through, it is still an adjustment. I think I ping my manager like every day, like, hey, I heard this in the meeting. What is that? And
Yes.
the Lord, Microsoft has a database where you can look up abbreviations because people abbreviate everything. Wow. And I'm just kind of like TTYL, LOL, I'm like, mine doesn't go past text, abbreviations. And that has been something that I'm navigating now because I didn't have those water cooler conversations to get to learn certain things. And even just navigating the remote space, understanding not to bump meetings up against each other, or, Microsoft is very pro camera off. So, we have that as an option, whereas working in higher ed, we had to have our camera on. They wanted to see you. They wanted to know you were there. And it's just kind of a different level of not respectability politics, but more so a different level of autonomy to be able to still navigate all of the nuances that come with this role, but then also just I'm trusted to do my job. So I feel like, and even when I talk to my manager, she's like, there's some things I'm still learning, because even as we're there, things change, teams change, reorgs happen. And luckily I haven't had that yet, but I'm just like, that could happen and I may have to learn something all over again. So I feel like the confidence of just trusting that I'm here for a reason, if you're in the room, you were meant to be here. That is really all that I kind of bank it on those days where I'm like, where are we, guys? What is this? I'm confused. I might put on a smile and have my camera off, but I'm like, okay, I'll circle back on whatever that was.
Absolutely. I wanted to piggyback off of what you said, Mia. I ping my manager all the time as well, and I ask tons of questions, and that was big for me. It's like, no question is a dumb question. Yes. Please ask every question. Yes. And I ask questions, because I don't know sometimes what this language means, and I didn't have any other exposure to professional development outside of this role, professional development in a corporate space or in a corporate sense. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy that Walmart has offered opportunities for me to have professional development learning, even from external organizations. Mm-hmm. And internally, they have a great onboarding program. So I'm really thankful for that. But had not I asked questions, even that, because I have to ask questions.
Yeah. And that's a big barrier. I feel like I came into this like, at my age, I should be able to just learn it and jump right in. And I think that's something that I had to work through with myself and with my manager is you can ask questions. Like, I think asking questions for a while, it seemed like it was like I was somewhat not equipped, or, I
Right.
felt invalid in certain things. But I'm learning that, somebody that knows everything can't be taught anything. So I have to be able to ask those questions, and I have to be comfortable with, I'm here for a reason, but what does that mean again? And it's okay. And we just roll with it, because everyone will be in the room just as confident, and they probably don't know either, but no one's going to say anything. So me asking may help for someone else who might not have the same confidence to be able to stand up or raise their hand.
And I can say, as a Generation Xer, right? For me, I didn't ask enough questions. And so when I had the conversation about, well, Elisha, tell me about some of your regrets. So what are some of the things that, if you can go back and change, that you would do? Or if you had an opportunity to speak to your younger self, what would you say? Right? It's not, because I get that question all the time. And it would be to ask more questions. I don't think along the way, I asked enough questions. Number one, I assumed that everyone knew. And so I didn't want to seem as if I didn't know something, because then that took away what I thought my credibility.
Yeah.
So not asking enough questions and making sure I understood what I was being involved with, what I was doing. And so now I ask a ton of questions. I come to the table locked and loaded
Love
with
it.
questions. So if you're watching this evening, talk to us about some questions that you may have that you want to ask us tonight. We want to make sure that you're a part of our conversation as well. And so we talked tonight about professional development. Do Black women have access to it? We talked about middle management. What does effective professional development look like for Black women in middle management roles? And all these things are very important. But also the elephant in the room is diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we talked about the data and what the numbers say when we look at C-suite roles, how many CEOs we have actually that look like us in these positions. And so, of course, we're all very proud of the CEO of Walgreens, who we can actually see that she looks like us. So that my question would be, well, do you think that, well, because I believe she's also worked for Walmart and Starbucks, right? She came through from those two different companies, and those are big, large corporations. Do you all, when you see her, does that kind of set the bar for you as like, okay, I too can navigate in that space? Because I did mention, millennials are the most positive generation, I believe, that we have. And so do you all see yourself in those spaces when you see someone that has trailblazed and made room in those spaces?
To be honest, I see it as possible.
Mhm.
But I don't just see it as, oh, you made it. It's like, oh my God, you went through a lot. I bet
Right.
you're tired.
Yeah.
Like I see it as, whew, what did you have to go through to get there?
Okay.
So I see that, and I'm so proud. And I'm also like, you know, what did you endure? What did you endure to get there?
And I'm glad you say that. So before you answer Mia, Shayna, do you think, is there a need for organizations to understand the challenges and barriers Black women face in the workplace? Did she freeze?
I think she
I
did.
think she did. Okay.
Oh.
Sorry, I
For
had
a minute, it
technical
looked
difficulties.
like she was posing. Okay. Did you
No.
hear the question?
Oh no. So I heard the question. Could you repeat it one more time for me, please? It kind of
Yes.
came up.
So I basically offer your response. Is there a need for organizations to understand, because you talked about how hard and challenging and what she may have gone through to get to that particular role. So is there a need for organizations to understand the challenges and barriers Black women face in the workplace to even move in a space like that?
Of course, I definitely think that it's imperative to understand the plights and the challenges and the generational challenges that it took to get there. I mean, I believe CEO Thasanda, she spoke and said either her or the Walmart CEO. I mean, not Walmart. Walgreens CEO that mentioned that they
Her name is
understand.
Rosalind Brewer.
Yes, Rosalind Brewer, that they understand that they have to stand on the backs of that they're standing on the backs of janitors and other frontline workers in corporate America before there was even a manager, a director, or CEO in corporate America. So yes, that has to be known. That should be known by companies. And also not just, I love Black women, and not just Black women, but also our Hispanic women, Latinx individuals, and Pacific Asian and Pacific Islander, American Asian Pacific Islanders as well. So just all of the women of color, like there's a story for each of that. And then even, white women went through different things too. So I think as a whole, as women, there needs to be that understanding of what it took generationally, historically, culturally, and all the suffixes that you can add to that. There needs to be an educational standpoint in why that was difficult to get there to that place, and why they may stand out as such an anomaly.
And Mia, what challenges do you think she probably faced? Like, if you just had to kind of throw some out, what challenges do you think she could have possibly faced?
I mean, honestly, being here in the Seattle area and Starbucks being right around the corner, meeting some women, I was at a sorority event and I met with some women that got to work with her while she was at Starbucks. And everyone was just so proud to have that representation. But then also, you got to think about it. I mean, you're one of, how many Black female CEOs, or how many just women of color, period, holding one of these roles. So I can only imagine the levels of maybe even sexism and, just those, I feel like it's things that impact us the most that aren't said, like that covert kind of institutionalization that goes on. So even if she's gotten to this point, it's like there's still so much work to be done, because she's just this one story to be told of the things that she faced. Just pushback from people that feel like I deserve to be in that role. I am more qualified, XYZ. And it's like, the qualifications aside, this is the person that has this role, and you can't discount what they did to get there. You can't discount what their qualifications are just because you feel like you're entitled to it. I think just the comparison alone of, well, she's a woman and, maybe she's a diversity hire. Like, I feel like that was something that we all kind of experienced at one point in time, even with affirmative action in college. It's just like, there at every level, I feel like there's going to be some kind of questioning of qualifications and, does she dress a certain way? Does she speak a certain way? You have to be on all the time and have your representatives show up for you in these spaces. And I think being able to have maybe an intimate conversation to where you can see, their authentic self and have their kind of like that wall down, that is what helps those that are in those companies to stay inspired. But on the outside looking in, we just see the nice headshot and the beautiful headline, and we're just, clapping and applauding. But I can only imagine what goes on behind closed doors. Just in my experiences of, working in higher ed, even coming into tech, I hear about some of those things, but I have not experienced it myself. So it's like, I know that it goes on of just being a woman and being challenged. Oh, you're too emotional, XYZ. Everything is, blamed on something else simply because of who you are.
And I'm glad that you said that, because that was one of my questions. Like, do you all experience any of those explicit biases that that she probably, and just for clarity for people that are watching, there are a total of 5 Black CEOs in Fortune 500 companies, and 2 of them are Black women. So on one hand,
just the one.
Just the one hand. Mm-hmm. So have you all ever experienced, any any biases in your work or in your training and your exposure? Because if so, I mean, I think it's okay to say that we do experience it at some extent. I don't think that you all don't work for, you don't get to the space where you are and haven't experienced something.
Right.
Especially in middle management, where you overlook because of your age, or did you think about how you need to wear your hair? Is it okay for me to wear braids to this interview or to this meeting, or is this color going to be too much, or I mean, all of those different things that come with showing up, as you said earlier, Shana, as your whole self. So I want to just close it out with that. Like, how does it feel, or how has it been feeling comfortable showing up as your whole self?
I've definitely had the contemplation of, okay, is my hair color? Because should I not ombre? Should I go 1B? 1B is your natural hair color. For those who don't know, that is, we have numbers for hair colors. I'm like, okay, do I go 1B? Do I go, with the ombre hairstyle? Of course. Do I need to straighten my hair? It was one day I wore my natural hair. I mean, full out fro, natural hair on my work call, and all my colleagues, they were like, and then somebody would say, I love your hair, Shana.
Yep.
I love your hair. I was like, oh, this is what the crown act is all about. I was like, this is what it's all about. And I was happy that, I'm happy to be in a company that actually acknowledges, racial equity and the importance thereof. I'm happy to be in a company where, I haven't really experienced it much. I haven't experienced it really at all. And I'm happy that I can show up with my blonde and brown, honey brown braids one day, and, my ombre hair. And I have colleagues who have hair shaved on one side and then red locks on the other. And so, and we show up, and our white colleagues actually are like, oh, I love your hair today. And, it's real, it's genuine. So I'm happy that, it's 2022. I'm the first Black woman in this role to ever be that. I'm the first Black woman that is a racial equity manager. The first time it's made a role. I'm in history right now. We are in history right now.
Yes.
And so, just I'm really soaking it up, knowing that we were born for such a time as this, and really soaking up the fact that things are changing. We got a long way to go, but things are changing, and I'm happy to be a part of, the building blocks to make a difference. So I'm soaking it up. I haven't experienced it yet, other than figure out how I should do my hair.
What about you, Mia? Thank you, Shana.
I think, I've kind of experienced it all. I mean, I'm one of those people, I would change my hair every other week, from wigs to braids to ponytail, and it would be like, that one meme of, I'll sign up for a subscription with different emails, and it's the same person with different hairstyles. That was me. And I think for my colleagues in my previous position that didn't understand it, a lot of times, like, they wouldn't recognize me, and I would show up in meetings, or, I would walk past them and say, hey, and get a look like, who is that? And I think that was that was probably the biggest thing for me, that experience of, did you ever see me at all? Because with the hair change, I am not that much different. Like, I promise, it's not like the whole Hannah Montana, Miley Cyrus thing where I can take off a hat and it's like, whoa, she's someone different. Like, I feel like I was always intentional to see people, say their name correctly, acknowledge them, and go on with whatever the interaction was, where I don't think that is always everyone else's, I guess, name in the game, or, experience. But it was something that I kind of early on in my career, I struggled with very much so, because I was told braids were unprofessional. I was told, don't take your employee ID with braids. It was just all those things that you hear. And a lot of it came from people that were just raised in a different generation. They experienced certain things in the workplace for them that it's just as we've progressed and we've, had those minor milestones that we just don't experience the same. And so, coming into this role, I made sure in my interview, I had a different look from, the first interview to the second interview. When I started my first day, I had braids down almost to my knees. Like I was like, I'm going to push the bar because I want to be able to show up as my, most comfortable, authentic self. And I think that was something that even the leadership here, they stress. Like, I I have a blog where it's called the Code Switching Creative, and that was something, one of the higher ups he found out about. He said, "So explain to me this. Like, you don't feel comfortable with being who you are?" And I was like, well, and I had to kind of explain it, but it was just where I was when I started that journey is not where I am now. And I think being able to have that perspective was powerful because, I think for a lot of women, especially Black women with our hair, I was I was in a meeting once and this woman said, Black women, are you gonna, sacrifice your heart health for your hairstyle? Because Black women are so particular about working out and, sweating their hair out. And I'm just like, hair for us culturally, that is a big thing. And there's so much rooted in it, Easter Sundays with the hot comb on the stove. I still have those memories. It's not just something you see in movies, but I think our hair is our crown for so many reasons. And so whether we have it or not, I think it just holds a different meaning. And so being able to express myself with my hair, for me, that is what my hair is for. It's my form of expression. I don't do a lot of jazzy stuff with the clothes or everything else, but my hair is going to be different. You're going to know. And I don't think people were comfortable or women were comfortable prior to even 2020. Because let's be honest, when we were remote and, at least in Georgia, on quarantine for those, 6 weeks, I couldn't go to the hair salon and,
Right.
I didn't have anything to do,
That is correct.
So I just showed up with the camera on, natural hair and all, and I love my natural curls, but for me, it's just, I'd rather wear a protective style so that cuts down on getting ready.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a journey.
I love this.
I'm teasing because I am a woman of many styles, right?
Yes.
I will look different tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
My hair. Yeah, I'm planning my hair for tomorrow. It will look different tomorrow.
Same.
But I'm excited about it gives me so much hope because you are correct. There have been spaces and times where I was, and I'm glad that's why tonight was important because it was from a millennial's perspective that you all have not experienced all the things that we have experienced. There was no way I would have ever shown up in an interview with braids. Not before now, not before 2022, right? There's no way that I would have showed up with like a loud color because that was what we were told. Neutral colors, natural hair colors, pull back in a bun, that type of thing. Nothing risque. Even when it came to colors, your basic navy, black is what you're supposed to kind of show up in for an interview. And a lot of those norms, and I'm talking about corporate America, and you're speaking to an HR professional. A lot of those norms have changed due not only to just COVID, but due to your particular generation that came in and be like, oh, I'm not wearing it. I kid you not. I would have, because I have mentored so many women, so many young women, so many millennials. The number is huge, at least over 100. Okay, I just be honest today, right? And so I would say, you're not wearing that to an interview. I would have a whole interview class, and I told them to wear what you thought was professional, right? And you would just not believe what they would show up on. Yep. That was not professional, And they're like, to who? When you said dress up, that's not dress up. So let me. So believe me, I have done all. And so I was taught when you always wear a T-length skirt, and that means come to your knees. For those people that are watching, that come to your knees. So when you take the stage or have to get up, then people is not looking. But no, you guys would go thigh and right at it and walking like it's not. Right. I'm like, oh my God, clutching my pearls and everything. You've taught me so much. I've learned a lot about millennials making room for themselves, showing up authentically who they are, but still being a boss. And when it comes to their business, I love it. I love your energy. I love what you bring to the room. I love the fact that you know how to work technology. And I'm a techie person too. And so I love the fact that has allowed us to advance career wise, and that's why we're in this space. So I just applaud you so much. I'm so grateful for you guys being brave enough to come on tonight and share your thoughts
Absolutely.
and
Thank
perspectives.
you.
And please share with anyone that may want to get in contact with you or follow you, because I think both of you do your own thing in your own spaces, from blogs to podcasts. Please tell us how to stay in contact with you.
Sure. So thank you so much, Ms. Cash, for having us on this show. And I hope that whatever we have shared today actually goes a long way. You can find me on Instagram at Shayna Fields _ So it's spelled like it says below, SHAYNAFIELDS _ And then, of course, add me on LinkedIn, Shayna Fields. And yeah, that's the only two places that you should find me for right now. Yeah.
And you can find me on LinkedIn, Mia Hawley, just as it's written out on the screen. I'm on LinkedIn. I have Instagram and I have Facebook. They're all the same content, but it really just depends on the kind of content you want on your feed. It's all positive, but I tell people, I'm like, the greatest impact social media can have is curating what you want to see and what you want to take from it. So you can find me on Instagram at the Mia Chantel, which is my middle name, which is MIASHANTEL. But that's just a word to the wise for everybody. With LinkedIn, with Facebook, all the social media, you curate what you want to see. And I think that's just a part of the journey as well. Like, I tell people I don't follow everybody on every platform, but the ones I do is because that's what I want to, that's what I want to create for my little bubble. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And for those of you that are watching this evening, you can follow me on the National Women's Empowerment Ministry platforms. Stay connected. Please go out to the reddressbrunch.com website. Subscribe to our website to learn more about our upcoming Black Women of Power Red Dress Brunch Retreat. It is going to be an amazing professional development opportunity for you. And so we talked a lot about having professional development available for us. And so this is an opportunity that is definitely one that you want to stay connected with. We have the power of strategic and collaborative partnerships, barriers of Black women in collaboration. We will have a session on the power of networking led by yours truly. How to manage stress, fuel your power, career and business pivoting with a purpose, how to negotiate your salary, a coaching session, the truth about empathy in the workplace. Diversity, equity, inclusion. That discussion is going to be so magnificent because it's about making room for others at the table, a seat at the table. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of my millennials is leading a session on power up your presence, professional styling, the new balancing act, work-life integration with remote work. And I talked to you about this, ladies. It's one of my favorite. Women should be seen and women should be heard. Leadership presence. And I think that's very important. And last but not least, the panel discussion, the elephant in the room on mentorship and sponsorship, which is so important because we kept seeing it over and over again. The information is rolling on the screen right below us. We'll be right back here next Wednesday. I call it Women's Wednesday at 8 o'clock p.m. Thank you so much for joining Women in Blazers, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Good night.
Bye.
Night.